All right. Here you go. Is there anything in particular you'd like to work on?
Not pressure because she's not here. So
Yeah. So good call there because I was on the same page. Because one, I think she empowers him the most.
Yeah.
And it's important that she be here to see and be a part of that. In my opinion, dogs are aware of this kind of stuff. You know how many times people are like, oh, when the dog's with my husband, no problem. When the dog's with me, the dog's a menace. And I go, right, it's like because you empower them, you give them something to protect. So we did heal, we did play. Was there anything that you wanted to review, or would you like to learn something new?
I feel like he's pretty good about almost everything that we've done. Like as soon as we get him into place, he's perfectly fine. He only really tries to get up. Trying to think what makes him try and get up, but he.
No. What about the cats?
He does pretty well. Like even when the cats are playing and running around.
You're heading out?
You wanna lock me out?
Yeah, I'll look you up. I'm sorry?
Yeah,
Monday.
he's really good. Even when the cats are playing and everything. I'm trying to think. There might have been a time when like someone dropped off packages at the house and
Lost it?
yeah.
Okay. And he was on place when that happened?
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense.
But I mean, he's still learning all of that stuff, so
Sure.
I'm not that worried about it because usually when I have him in place, he'll stay there.
I know with Amazon, UPS and stuff, it's more random, but do you know like the time of day you usually get your packages and stuff?
Usually around like 1:30 is when mail comes and sometimes Amazon stuff.
Okay. So I would suggest if you're home at like 12:30, place him already. And I would already probably preemptively bump my number a bit to correct them because that's a good challenge then to work on. Place is what we call mechanical control. And when Amazon comes, he's becoming territorial, which is a mindset, right? So I teach it just because it's good to have as an option. So the theory is if your dog's on place, your dog can't like charge the door, right? Which theoretically, yes, that's true. But if he finds that whatever's behind the door is a big enough threat, he's going to go, screw place. I want to charge and address this or whatever. So it's a good challenge just because it gives you something to work on internally and to correct. But that's what I would suggest is at 12:30, collar him up, have it ready to go. Probably have his number preemptively up a bit. So typically he's on a 25. I might be at a 35.
Yeah,
just because I want to.
Him, I think around 30
Okay.
to 35, depending on what we're doing.
Okay. So then the next thing is, let's say you do this Monday through Friday, and you're using 30, and you feel at 30 he'll stop, but he always does it the next day. Then it's stopping it within the moment, but he's not thinking like, I don't want to do this the next time.
Yeah.
So then I start going to 35. And then see what 35 does. And if it's in the same pattern, then I go to 40. Eventually, you're going to hit a range where it's like, oh yeah, ever since we hit 65, he doesn't care about the door anymore. Now you found that kind of magic number.
Well, even like with 30 and 35, like hovering around there, he has not been barking like at our neighbors or anything anymore. They even were like having work done on their sidewalk.
Yeah.
So there was a bunch of new people and lots of noises, and I let him out in the morning, and I had forgot to put his collar on him, and I was like,
sure.
But he was perfectly fine.
Okay.
He just did his business and came right back in. So.
Gotcha. And actually, if you don't mind, remind me before you go, if I can get your email, because I think Melissa's it's like the mailbox is full.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So because I sent her the emails and stuff that I talked about last time, but everything's been rejected.
Yeah.
So this way.
She's working on fixing that.
Is it like a school email or something, or?
It's just her, I think her personal Gmail, but she's had it for so long, and she tried to clean it up, but then she forgot that she had like auto backup on. So.
Oh, so like everything just.
I mean, it filled back up.
I can't.
It's like, why is this not working?
I'm always deleting stuff because I hate having notifications. So I cleaned it out. But my girlfriend's, it's like 600 emails. I'm like, why? All right. Okay, no big deal. But this way, if you want access to them sooner, I can just email them to you as well. Okay. So then let's go to bring Mango over here. What we'll do, I'm trying to remember how many you guys are doing. 5 out of 9. Okay. So what I would do is not going to seem like much, but I'm going to cover the stay. Then hopefully Liz can be here next class. We'll work on pressure, and then take a few classes to really focus on behavior stuff. Well, actually, let me take a look at my calendar here because I'm going to be out of town too, but I think I'm here one more weekend. Yeah, so I'll be here on the 23rd.
Okay.
And then I'm out the 30th.
Okay.
So that would be, if I do that. Do you guys ever have guests come over?
Rarely, but I mean, we do. Usually it's like her best friend that she found him with.
Okay.
And he's
completely fine
with him.
Okay.
Just, I think last weekend was my birthday.
Okay.
And
Happy birthday.
Thank you. My best friend and my mom came over. And
Okay.
he actually did fairly well with them.
Okay.
We have like a baby gate that we got because of him. And we put it up and we let him like get used to them being in there and then let him free. And he just sniffed around them, made sure that they were, I guess, there. And then he was fine.
Had you met them before?
He had met my mom before.
Okay. Once, twice, or?
A handful of times.
Handful? Okay. So he's familiar. Anybody, at least since starting the training, have you had anybody he's never met before come over?
Yeah, my best friend.
Okay.
And he was fine with him.
Okay. So, because when I first talked to Melissa, I think, so was it just like leash reactivity outside and more so reactivity towards just like, drivers, passerbys, GPS?
He definitely didn't like it, like, the first few times that my mom came in. He definitely bit her, like, on the leg.
Okay. In the first 5 times that he had met her?
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
But yeah, I think he's getting better in general.
Okay.
Because before, like, when we would drive him here, he would go crazy at, like, everyone he saw on the sidewalks and everything. And we were stopped at a stoplight today, and there was people, like, throwing stuff in their car. And he was just, like, looking around.
Okay.
Enjoying the ride, so.
Good. Okay. So with reactivity, so dogs don't generalize well. So like reactivity on a walk on the leash versus reactivity in the car versus reactivity in the home are all separate. Because sometimes people get surprised or like, how come this is so much better, but in the car the dog's still reacting? Like it's a different context. Okay. Sometimes what can happen is if you're being good about correcting the reactivity in all these different contexts, then at some point the dog starts to generalize that it's his behavior of the lunging and barking that creates the correction, and then they start to keep themselves in check more. Okay, so I would just keep an eye on all those things, and then just note if he has any kind of weaknesses.
He really hates people on bikes.
Okay, on the leash and in the car or anywhere?
Yeah, just in general.
In general, okay. How often do you come across people on bikes?
Not as much anymore.
Because of the winter.
But there's a lot of people around us that I guess are on their bikes and like whenever we're driving and stuff.
Okay. I would say if you see a biker, if you've corrected them at 30 to 35, it's the same. Everything's the same, right?
Yeah.
You correct them, and if it happens again, I go, all right, next time I see a bike, I'm going to be at 40,
Yep.
right? And what I usually tell my clients is if they know the dog is doing well in all these other areas, and they rarely ever have to correct them, it's only for these kind of, oh, there's a bike moment.
Yeah.
I'll tell them then just keep your number preemptively higher because you're only really using it then for those specific things. And if you miss the opportunity, it's not going to set you back, miles or whatever, but him getting away with it obviously does not help. But even like the delay in going from 30 to 50 or whatever it is that he needs can be rewarding enough for the dog because he thinks, okay, I got to bark for at least 2 seconds and it didn't hit 50 until 2 seconds. So the barking for 2 seconds is worth taking the 50.
Gotcha.
Okay. Dog logic and human logic aren't the same. So ideally, in some cases, we want to correct as soon as we see the behavior starting to peak or the dog start to show like the signs, especially if you're correcting higher. And that's when you start to see the dog make a lot more progress. Okay.
I think the only other thing he really has a problem with is when we like both leave the house.
The separation anxiety.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you guys do with him?
We have him in our guest room.
Okay.
In a like a crate,
Mm-hmm.
and he's separated from Cookie Monster.
Okay.
We just recently bought him a new crate because I think she sent you an email about like him just destroying the crate pretty much and escaping. And,
No, I didn't get anything, so maybe she forgot.
Here, I probably have the picture. It's a fun little picture, actually. We have. Let's see if I could find it. Yeah, he like broke out of the crate, and we had put like zip ties on because he had been breaking out of the crate.
Yeah.
Multiple times. And I can't find the. Well, there was one where he broke out of the crate, and it was like diagonal against the bed, and he was out of it, and we were like, "How did you?"
So it's a standard wire crate.
Yeah.
And you got a new one already?
Yeah.
What's the new one look like?
I think it's a Ruffland crate.
Oh yeah, exactly. I was actually gonna recommend.
Yeah.
So you're
we
good.
didn't want him to keep hurting himself.
Yeah. The travel crate.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, those are good.
Because, oh yeah, here. Picture. He was like smacking his head against the.
Oh wow.
So it was
Yeah.
like he got stung by a bee or something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we use for our transport van, or the Ruffling kennels. And then I was looking at the design. I'm like, yeah, I don't think a dog can escape this.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay, so you put them in the crate, and then Tito's a fit.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you tried using the collar to correct them at all?
No, we have not.
So what we can do is, I would, if you put him in the crate while you're home, will he still exhibit the same behavior, or only when you leave?
Yes, because sometimes we put him in the crate, like, and then we go to get ready or whatever.
Okay.
And then he's going insane, screaming bloody murder.
Okay, cool.
And he's just like absolutely drooling.
Okay. Do you have your remote on you?
Yeah.
So go ahead and grab your remote here, and I'm going to just give Mango a tap. And see what he does. Yep. Go ahead and just fix your leash there so it's not tangled up. Good. See what he does. Good. So there's gonna be a couple of components here. Okay. One is because Mango's not under command currently, correct? Is you notice how right now he was just kind of wandering?
Yeah.
Is it doesn't seem like much, but I always tell my clients you always want to practice as much control as possible, unless the intention is freedom.
Yeah.
Right. So even though he's not under command right now, when you tapped him, what do you think that tap communicated?
I'm doing something I'm not supposed to.
Yeah, like don't do that right now. Like I know we're not doing anything,
Yeah.
but don't do that right now, right? Is I see this a lot, is that with clients, they want the control only in the very specific moments when they need it. So like, oh, the dog's running towards the street, come, right? They want it to work then. Or it's like, the dog is jumping on people and then they want the dog to sit, right? But they're not really employing control throughout the day regularly. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Whereas, even though we're here, we're having a conversation, nothing's going on, like who really cares? Right now, Mango's just like, all right, I do what I want. And it's just a lot of this, right? So he doesn't have to be under command in order for you to have control. So I could care less if Mango laid down. I could care less even if he stood up. I just don't want this constant wandering, right? So when you start to practice a lot of just control, consequence, I will give you permission when it's time to, be a dog, whatever. He's not making so many choices, because the more choices he makes, right, the more it feeds into he does what he wants. So if you put him in the kennel, you want control.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to leave my house. You're going to be there. Ideally, you would be quiet. And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, I do what I want all the time. And now you want me to stay in the kennel? That's where we start to get conflict. Does that make sense? So as humans, we also tend to target, if he lays down, that's fine, specific things. We have a problem that's in the kennel. And I go, yes. So people will disregard stuff like this because this is not a problem. He was just exploring. But to me, I go, that is part of the problem because it's lack of direction on his from us to him. It's also just him doing what he wants again, right? So then when we have these moments of, all right, now you're going to do what we want, which is stay in this kennel and be quiet, we're going to have a disagreement there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So these are little things that you can do that just empower you a little bit more, puts rules in their brain of, hey, bud, like you don't always have to be doing something. So when it's time to put him in the kennel, he's like, oh yeah, sure. Sometimes I have to sit still for a bit. Does that make sense? So if you can't get him to sit still outside of the kennel, it's going to be hard to get him to sit still inside of the kennel as well. Okay. So when we look at my rule of 80-20, 80% work to 20% play, we usually think of it on the walk. If we're in the heel, dogs on the heel 80% of the time, 20% of the time they can be a dog. In the home as well, like with us teaching the place command, it sounds like you guys are also employing it regularly. Is that correct?
It depends on what I'm doing.
Okay.
So like if sometimes I come home from work early and I like work from home. And I've tried putting him in place then, but then other times I'll just let him sleep with Melissa in the bed. Sure.
So what I would do for you guys, find times throughout the day that you can use place, right? So you can, because typically we don't do control in the house, right? Now, I go by the dog. I get cases where there is no separation anxiety. So the owner really just wants obedience and control when they're outside. And they can still let the dog do whatever they want inside the home. And I go, that's fine. I'm like, if you're happy with that and your dog's a good dog, I don't care. In your case, because you have the separation anxiety, then I go, we need to start bringing in structure inside of the home too. And it doesn't have to be 80% of the day, but definitely much more than we normally would. Because like even my dogs, at home, I don't know if we even use obedience really. It's really when I just let them out because they're 13 years old. They sleep all day. But if I go to the park, they have their collars on and they're doing their thing, right? But I go by the case. So here, if I have a dog that has separation anxiety, then I look for opportunities where I can put in either more consequence and or more control. Okay, so then he starts thinking like, okay, I don't always get to do what I want, even in the home. Yep. Wait a sec. There he goes, right? So right now we've been talking probably about 5 minutes, and he stands up. Doesn't seem like a huge thing, but that's the brain already going, I need to do something. Gotcha. So we call it overstimulation. Overstimulation is the brain's inability to just relax, okay? So like my pit Lexi, she's in there right now. In the morning, like she was here, she was watching me train for a few minutes, and she's like, all right, it's kind of boring, I'm gonna go lay down, right? And then she'll just lay on her dog bed, and then that's it. And dogs will come in and out, and she's just like, that's none of my business, right? An overstimulated dog would be at the gate, going over, trying to pull a toy off the wall, trying to open the food, like they need something to do. Yeah. And that also can help feed into the separation anxiety type stuff, okay? So an overstimulated brain is unable to relax, so if you put that mindset into an enclosed area, you're going to get frustration, okay? Also with separation anxiety, typically, in my opinion, it comes from a dog, if they feel they own you, that's where the stress comes from, okay? So you guys have a vehicle, you have a car?
Yeah.
Let's say you park in front of your house and you look out the window and your car is missing and you know Melissa didn't take it and you didn't borrow it to anybody. Are you going to worry?
Yeah.
Right? Because it's your vehicle, it's missing. Let's say you see your neighbor's car, right? And then one day you look out and it's gone. Do you care?
A little, but not nearly as much.
Yeah, you're probably like, my neighbor probably took it, right? You're not going to really assume that somebody stole it because you don't know. It's not your vehicle. But you know your vehicle was stolen because it's your vehicle, right? Yeah. Is we care about the things that we own, right? That are ours or that we care about. So if a dog feels like they own the owner, when that owner is gone, now the dog goes into stress. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So typically separation anxiety is an attachment issue as well. So in order for us to flip that psychology, this is where correcting the dog and putting boundaries comes into play, because technically, like I own my own business, right? Do you think my employees tell me what to do? No. right? If they did, it'd be like, what kind of business are you running here, man, right? I'm the employer. I sign the checks. I give the instructions, right? An employee might ask me, they say, hey, Jesse, do you mind helping me with this? And I go, sure, right? That's a request. But that's very different from like, hey, help me with this.
Yeah.
Makes sense? So it's that dynamic. So when you give consequence, you put rules and you say, you can't do that, you can't wander, even though we're not in obedience, I'm disagreeing with that, right? You can't bark at UPS. You're empowering yourself. So then technically, if you're the one doing the discipline, you're in charge of him, not him in charge of you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So this is why separation anxiety, in my opinion, is actually one of the more difficult things to fix, because it's relationship based, okay? Aggression actually, in my opinion, more often than not, is the easiest to fix, because it's just don't bite people or don't bite dogs. And usually people are motivated because they go, well, I don't want liability. I don't want my dog to hurt anybody. So they're willing to take it more serious and apply the corrections. Separation anxiety, however, tends to be the owner being too soft with the dog, and somebody's got to take charge.
Yeah.
So the dog steps in. So then it's trying to get the owner to recognize that and to be consequential consistently and not dote on the dog, because that just sets us back, right?
Yeah.
So when we look at the 80-20 rule, we have 80% work to 20% play, and then we have 80% leadership to 20% friendship, is how I also like to look at it, okay? I look at it as like a parent-child relationship. So like, I was raised old school, I was spanked, all that stuff. I love my mom. We've definitely done stuff, go to the movies, she threw me root beer float parties when I was a kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
That friend stuff. But she was also like my mom.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Same thing with like law enforcement. You know, law enforcement, they're authority figures, right? They're not really meant to be our friends, but you might have a casual conversation with one, but that doesn't make them their friend. They're still a cop at the end of the day, right? So if you get out of line, you're still getting arrested. It's the same thing with the dog, which is problematic because when we get dogs, it's typically companion-based, right? Oh, I want this guy to be my buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and some dogs you can. Cookie Monster, I'm sure, not a problem, right? Mango, however, different personality type. So if you're 80% buddy, again, to that 20% leader, he's like, what do you mean you don't want me? You want me to stay in the kennel? Like, you don't tell me what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're friends, right? Like, I don't tell my friends what to do. They're my friends, right? We're grown men. Like, we don't tell each other what to do because that's the relationship, you know? But some of my friends have kids and they tell their kids what to do, right? One of my friends is like a sergeant lieutenant or something, and he has people he tells what to do, right? That's how that dynamic works, okay? So one way we can start flipping that script is simply by little things like this. It doesn't seem like much, but when you come in and we're just having a conversation and then he's doing this, there's no guidance there, right? So just I prefer to do this more than I prefer to say sit, because another dog would say, I don't like you sniffing around here. They don't say sit.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a more behavioral approach to just say, I disagree with you sniffing around right now. Yeah. Does that make sense? Obedience is mechanical control. Again, going to place. Place tells him to go to an object and stay there, but mentally, he can still go, I really want to bark at Amazon right now. Yeah. Right? The difference between behavior and obedience is obedience tends to be physical, behavior is mental, right? I know you want to bark at Amazon, but you can't. He goes, oh, okay, so then I'm going to stop caring about Amazon. That's not my business anymore. Make sense? So that's the behavioral approach, is we're actually trying to address the decisions or the mindset that the dog has, so that we're getting more passiveness. So like my pit Lexi, if I brought her out right now and I was talking to you, she'd be laying down sleeping. She's like, we're not doing anything right now. I'm just going to relax and take a nap. And this was even when she was a puppy or when she was 2 years old. Like, it was always control. So she's like, oh, we're not doing anything right now? I'm going to just chill. Yeah. And then when I said break, then it was, I can run around and chase squirrels and have fun and be a dog. Yeah. Okay. So this is something that I would say whenever you're with Mango, let's say obviously you go on a walk, you put a heel, that's different. You come to a stop, you say break. You're on break, he's sniffing, he's being a dog, he's welcome to do that. But then you see him see another dog or a bike, right? I don't say heel or anything, but you start to see that mindset happen. What are we going to do here?
Correct it.
We're going to correct it, right? You're not going to do that. I know you don't like that bike, but you're not going to do that. Yeah. It's a similar thing here. So even though he's on break and he's free to be a dog, he still can't perform certain behaviors, okay? Let's say, you go to a friend's house. You bring Mango over. He's got his collar on. And then you see the same thing. You walk in, and he's just exploring. And you're like, we're not going to do that right now. We're just going to hang out and relax, right? Rules are good, Okay, when the brain is stimulated and constantly moving, that's typically what leads to other behaviors. Okay, so going back to the separation anxiety, what I would suggest is if your dog can't handle it when you're gone, or if you can't handle it when you're home and in the kennel, then he's definitely not going to be able to handle it when you're gone and he's in the kennel. So I start with him when I'm home. Okay, so like let's say I like that you said if I come home from work, sometimes I'll place him. That's great. Maybe on a Saturday, if you guys are both home just hanging out watching TV, you're like, you know what, we're gonna practice some separation with Mango right now, and we're gonna pop him in his kennel with his collar on, close it, and then go to watch TV. You start to hear him whine or anything, correct him on the collar. Okay, don't be surprised if you have to go up higher, because if he is getting anxious in the kennel, anxiety tends to snowball, and it starts small, and it becomes huge. Okay, it might even feel like you're making it worse.
Yeah.
Okay, and we just keep going up, and eventually he's gonna have a breaking point, and you might get this real loud outburst, and all of a sudden it's silence. And then if you have a camera and you check the camera or whatever, it's like he's sleeping because you finally broke through the anxiety. Okay, and then there's no rush there, because if you're just sitting there hanging out, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And we do that for a bit, and what you start to realize is, oh, when we put him in the kennel now, he's relaxing right away. So then, if you guys are gonna go out for dinner, maybe an hour or two, put the collar on him, put him in the kennel, leave, maybe hang outside for a minute or two, see what he does. If he starts to bark, you correct him in the collar, you notice him go into a resting state, hop in the car, go enjoy dinner, come back, see what happens. So we're doing a shorter time frame, okay? Because that's gonna have a limitation on the range.
Yeah.
But I've had clients do it in the past just to start getting to start chipping away at that. Okay, but I definitely suggest at least when you're home. On days if you work from home, what you can do is just pop them in the kennel for the day for the entire day. Okay, this isn't bad. This isn't mean. So like, excuse me, when COVID happened, everybody got a dog.
Yeah.
Territorial and separation anxiety cases went through the roof because people were with their dogs all the time.
Yeah.
So all my clients that I had at the time that had puppies, I told them, I know you work from home, but take your puppy, put them in the kennel in another room ideally. If you don't have another room, at least put them across the room from you, put something to block their visual so that they're not constantly seeing you, to create some kind of separation. The clients that did that had an easier time transitioning to when we started going back to work. The clients that didn't do that had a really hard time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like our cats definitely do not like other people, because we got them like pretty much right before COVID, and now whenever someone comes over, they are just gone.
Yeah.
They're hidden.
Yeah. So I would take advantage of like, oh, I'm gonna work from home. You're gonna be away from me all day. Okay, pop him in the kennel. If he's at a point where he doesn't need the collar, that's fine, don't need it. If you are planning on having him there for 4 hours at a time, for example, you do have to rotate the collar every 2 hours. So you can go in, rotate it, close it. He might like paw, give a tap for the pawing, right? I'm just here to rotate your collar, buddy, and then I leave, right? I'm very indifferent.
Usually so whenever we put him in the crate, I could like count. Like we put him in the crate, we close the door, we start going down the stairs, I start counting to 5, and then he just goes off.
Yep.
And I'm like, yep, that's right on cue. But when we get home, he's perfectly fine. He's probably tired himself out, honestly. And Cookie Monster is the one that's barking because she's excited to see us.
Right. So yeah. Do you guys happen to have a camera?
I don't think we have one. We've been planning to get like Nest cameras or whatever for outside, so we'll probably get one for inside as well.
Yeah, they're like $25 now.
Yeah.
And they even have sound recognition where it'll ping you. So I would suggest you can get one for for his kennel, so you can see what's going on and just track his progress. It's a great tool for sure. There's even some that allow you to like talk to the dog.
Yeah.
You know, so if you have like a correctional word, so because at some point you're not going to have the collar on him all the time, right? If you do quiet and you empower it with the remote collar, and then one day he's barking and you're like quiet and he just shuts up, and I go, okay, cool, like what I did worked, right? There are going to be exceptions. It's one thing for the dog to be worked up because you're gone. It's another thing to be worked up because he heard UPS drop off a package. Those are separate things.
Yeah.
That's the one thing about bark collar is that, because I talked to Melissa about it, I said, worst case scenario is you put a bark collar on him, it'll keep him quiet and everything. But then anything he barks at, it's going to turn on. Yeah. So then you lose some security there. Because even if he hears like Amazon dropping off a package, he's like, well, if I bark at that, I'm going to get stimulated. It doesn't recognize the dog barking because it's anxious versus it's barking because it hears something. Yeah. So that's the drawback. But yeah, you could start doing that. And then, so if you put him in the kennel and you close it, can you already see him like uncomfortable?
Yeah, like he immediately starts drooling.
Okay.
And he's like anxious. He's trying to move, get out.
Should have done this earlier. Let's see if he does it for us here. So you want to pop him in?
Yeah. Should I take his collar?
You would leave everything on. So, yep, pull him in. Okay. Does he do this at home too?
Yeah, sometimes we have to push him in.
Yep.
Come in. Good boy.
Cool. There we go. Okay. So what we're going to do here is when you pop him in the kennel, we want to see how does he feel. Okay. So the crook is uncomfortable. He's unsure. Mm-hmm. Was your kennel smaller than this or the same size?
The first one was a little smaller. The new one, I think, is probably about this size.
Okay. And that's the Rufflin kennel?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So there's the panting. So what's your number currently? I'll stress you on. Let's go and dip down to 18. Go ahead and just give a tap here. Yeah, there's a drooling tap. Right there. Okay, it doesn't seem like much. But what you're doing is you're proactively putting them in a more passive position. Okay, so we can tell if a dog's comfortable or uncomfortable, mainly usually because they're standing. Okay, especially with anxious dogs. Sitting and laying down are good because it's the brain going into a calmer state. So this is you being proactive about it. When we kennel our dogs, we tend to put it on them, right? And I do that with puppies. So like we had a puppy come for a 1 week board and train, and we just like let them bark it out. Sometimes we'll correct it if it's bothersome or whatever. But I usually just put them in a corner when they're not gonna bother anybody, and they go bark it out. You're gonna learn that your bark's not gonna do anything for you, right? So they go, all right, well I barked for 2 hours straight and nobody came for me, so I'm just gonna relax. And gradually that barking goes down. So we just let the dog deal with it, but it's a puppy. With the older dogs, or dogs that we know already have an established behavior, we have to be, you can take the approach of let the dog settle, but if we already know what the pattern is, what you said, I can count to 5, and I know it's going to happen, then I would suggest taking a more proactive approach. Okay, so he's collared up. We're going to also have to fix the apprehension of going into the kennel, because that's part of it, because he's going, I don't want to go in there.
The first time that Melissa got the Rufflin kennel, she was using treats to like
incentivize
lure him in.
Yep.
Pretty much. And because eventually, or when she first put it in there, he would not even like go in the room because he was like, this is a new crate. I already don't like the old one.
Yeah.
But eventually he was just sniffing around and he went in on his own.
Sure.
Because she gave him enough time. But sometimes when we're getting ready to leave, we're already late and we're like,
there is no time. That's correct. So that's the benefit. So I'm not against using treats. I definitely recommend it. Yeah. It's a great positive association. I also recommend feeding the dog in the kennel for their meals. So like, let's say you put him in for breakfast. You put his food bowl in there, you close it, you come back 5 minutes later and it's still there. That tells you how he feels about the crate. Yeah. Okay, so if he's not, you can say something?
When we first got him, we fed him like alone away from Cookie and the cats. First we started like in our back mudroom and we would close the door, and then we moved to the bathroom and we would close the door and we would come back and he just wouldn't have ate.
Yes.
Because he's Anxious.
Stressed, yes. So I use that to my advantage, okay? So if I have a dog in there and they're not eating the food, so I give them 5 minutes. Come back, I'll pull them out, I'll put the food away. They don't eat. Mm-hmm. I'll come back lunch, feed them the same meal, okay? Put them in the kennel, 5 minutes. Come back, they don't eat, put it away. And I repeat that process. Eventually, it's because it's against instinct to starve themselves to death.
Yeah.
Hunger is gonna kick in. So he's gonna go, you know what, the only time I see a bowl of food is when I'm in this kennel, but I hate the kennel. Sooner or later, it's gonna happen. And you're gonna come back and he's gonna be there eating, okay? And I go, good, I'll let the dog finish, okay? Now, if he eats some of the meal and not all of it, open it after the time, pull it out, and then I'll give him a new meal the next time. So I never compensate because hunger has to happen. Because I get clients that will like do 2 meals, 3 meals. I go, no, no, no. Hunger has to happen, okay? Eventually the dog goes, I fucking love the kennel because it's the only time I see my food. And I withdraw treats, all that stuff, because if he's getting treats elsewhere, he's gonna learn I can hold out here, but I'll get it at other times, okay? Gotcha. Once I got the dog eating the food in the kennel, I do like using things that he would, like a Kong with peanut butter, that he would only get in the kennel.
Gotcha.
Okay, so I use positive reinforcement too, but I'll isolate. And I go, the only time you're gonna see this Kong with peanut butter is when you're in the kennel, right? And eventually we make it to, you're gonna see it when we're gone, right? But I never give the dog that anywhere else. So the dog goes, that's the only time, you know, it's like for humans, right? Like there's certain things you only get when you're in certain places. So it makes it more pleasing for us, right? Same thing for the dog, okay? So these things are great, but I build up to them. I always start with the core. The dog needs its daily kibble, right? So I start with their meals, make them work for it emotionally. And then once I got that down and it's consistent, then I go, cool. Now I can start doing other things like the Kong with peanut butter, okay? And I suggest continuing to feed the dog in the kennel just because it doesn't hurt to just always have that as a positive tide to it.
Gotcha.
Something I've also done is like, let's say you take a bully stick, right? Or something that's a favorite thing of his. I'll pop it in the kennel and I'll lock the kennel with him outside. And you'll see him sniffing and then like pawing at it because now the dog's like, now I want to go inside. Yeah. So then I go, open it, they'll walk inside and I'll close it. And then you might see them like paw at it or whatever. I might give him a couple of minutes. And if he's like, no, I don't want to be in here, I'll let them out, and then I'll close it, but I'll leave the thing in there still. So then the dog's like, because they try to take it with them. I go, nope, that's not coming out. It's staying in there. You see that psychology game there?
Gotcha.
So that's the way we can play with positive reinforcement type stuff. And that's like the slow approach. There's no harm in it. But then there's also, you need to go in there when I tell you need to go in there, and we don't have the time to like ease you into this kind of stuff. So this is where the remote collar comes into play, okay? So when you push or carry Mango into the space, it sounds stupid, but he doesn't know how he got in there. Yeah. Okay? So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna put pressure behind this. So this part is easy, right? When you put him in there, if he looks unsettled, the reason why we dipped it down to 18 is he wasn't spazzing out. Yeah. Okay, so we start low, work our way up if needed. You gave 2 taps at 18, he sat back, and he's clearly in distress, right? This is fine. You leave the space. If this escalates and becomes barking, you give him a tap. If it continues to happen, you just bump it 3 to 5 levels until eventually he quiets down. Gotcha. Okay? And you wouldn't leave him with the leash, obviously. But what we're gonna do is when we go to open the kennel, if he's a barger, we have to correct that. Okay? He has to hold until we give him permission to come out. But then we're also gonna put pressure behind going in so that he is going in willingly. Does that make sense? So what we're gonna do is when you come over to the gate, you're gonna unlock it. If he gets up, I'm gonna have you tap on the collar. We're gonna see what he does. Ideally, he would just sit back. He sits back, I slowly go to open it. If he tries to go like he's gonna go through, you're gonna close it and then tap on the collar again to back him off. And what we're looking for is that he holds and allows you to open the gates without coming through. And then you can grab the leash. And even if you grab the leash, if he tries to come out, we're gonna correct that. He does not come out until you say break. Okay. Once that word is cued, then he's able to come out. Nothing else matters. Make sense? Yes. Okay, so go ahead and approach the kennel. You're gonna go ahead and unlock. So this is all good. Tip. Tip. Just like that, good. And now have you reach for the leash. Go ahead and try to grab it from his right side here. There we go. Yep, go ahead and pull it. Tap, tap. Go to close, tap, tap. Good, hold right there. Wait a sec. There it is, go to open. Good, wait a sec. Good, now here, you're gonna slowly stand up, but as you stand up, he might take that as an invitation, so it's just, expect that you might have to correct them again, okay? Go ahead and try to stand up. Tap, 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 tap. Hold right there, good. Go to open your gate, and then fully stand. We're gonna pause right there, okay? So this here is what we call mental game. You're gonna take a step back. I'll address the gate if we need to, okay? Yep, hold right there. Tap, 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 tap. Let's go to 21. Tap, tap. There it is. Good. So this is what we call mental game. Okay? So you see how I was able to call all those things prior to them happening? Mm-hmm. It's because what you were doing right there was pressure, but you're doing body pressure. So when you crouch down and you go to open, right? The fact that you're down on his level, your presence helps keep him at bay. So then when you go to take away that presence and you stand up, he's like, is that my invitation? I go, no. Then when you do that step back, the same thing, you're taking off that pressure. So then the brain thinks, is that my invitation? I go, no. Okay, until you hear that cue of break, nothing else matters, okay? Because the brain clearly doesn't want to be in there. That's why it looks like this, okay? What would you describe this as?
Stressed, anxious, wanting to move.
If we have fight, flight, avoidance, submission, which of those four do you think that is?
This is probably avoidance.
This is avoidance, correct. What you said is also correct, but I see this as avoidance because he thinks, because what does he want to do?
He wants to leave.
Correct, right? So he's going, I know if I look at that threshold, I'm tempted, so I'm going to avoid looking at that threshold, okay? It sounds silly, but that's literally how he's handling the situation right now, okay? This is all normal. This is all stuff that we want to see. Whenever we're trying to address something, we always need to see avoidance first, whether it's aggression or any other kind of behavior that we're trying to stop. For example, the cats, right? If he's harassing the cats and we go to correct them, I want to start seeing avoidance when I start correcting. So then he'll see the cat and he'll go, I'm going to go over here instead, right? Instead of trying to chase him, he's going to go the opposite way. And eventually he goes, you know what? I know what's going to happen if I chase the cats, but I don't want to avoid them anymore. I'm just lay here and just like not bother with them. That would be a submission or acceptance, right? And then nothing happens. He goes, oh, okay, cool. I have another option now, right? So here, what we're teaching Mango is that this door means nothing. The fact that it's open means nothing, right? So it's similar to place. Place is boundaries with no walls. It's also a mental game, okay? Here, we have a place with walls. So you're trying to remove, hey, buddy, when this opens up, it means nothing to me or to you, right? So you could literally drop the leash, walk away, sit down and watch TV for 2 hours, and he'd be expected to sit in there. Mm-hmm. Similar to place, right? I want that kind of mental game because then it removes the meaning of this. So let's say, so that you understand how he feels, let's say someone takes you and then throws you in a room with no windows and closes and locks the door. How are you going to feel? Terrified, right? Because you're like, I just got fucking kidnapped, right? There's no way for me to get out. That's how the dog feels, okay? So dogs are denning animals, right? But they can go in and out that den as they please. We have a den as well, but that den closes, right? So if we take together both the separation stuff of feeling like they own something, plus you have the added component of like, you can't escape from here, stress levels go up, okay? So this is gonna sound bad, but we're dealing with a dog. I'm removing the exit as an option through pressure. So then we get what's called learned helplessness. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah,
right?
I think so.
So it's a scientific term, right? Where it means that the dog learns that there's nothing they can do, so they just give in, right? Yeah. And it sounds terrible, but it's not. In some degrees, it's necessary, right? So if he goes, all right, well, I know if I try to get out of here, I'm going to get remoted. If I try to break out, I'm going to get remoted. When they open the gate, I'm going to get remoted. We get learned helplessness, right? But that's just the dog going, all right, well, there's nothing I can do about this, so I might as well just stop trying. But that's actually how we're going to address the behavior. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Learned helplessness is bad when we're talking with humans, or if we're talking about with the dog, like if they're on a floor that constantly just shocks or whatever, you'll get learned helplessness where they'll just lay down and they'll take it because they're like, there's nothing I can do to turn this off, right? That's terrible. But here, we need him to learn, trying to think about escaping this doesn't matter because I can't unless I hear the word break. And then he goes, well, I might as well relax then. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you don't remove the option of exiting on his own,
then he's not going to learn.
Exactly, right? When you remove it, you're like, hey, bud, you can exit this. When I tell you you can exit this, one, again, that relationship dynamic, right? We're flipping it. But then also he goes, all right, well, there's nothing to be worked up about, right? Going back to the car thing, if it's your car and it's gone, you're like, what the fuck's my car? You get worked up on it because it's your car, right? You as a human, if you're locked in a room because it's your God-given right to be free, right? That's not supposed to happen. Yes, you would freak out, and I agree with you. Dog, we don't have that.
Yeah.
Makes sense? So here, when we do these little exercises, one thing that I'll have clients do, and this is down the line a little bit, is you could take his kennel, bring it out, pop him in there, leave the door open with the leash on and stuff, and you just play that mental game of like, hey, bud, like you're gonna be in there, we're gonna be over here, right? And you could gradually, technically push it and push it and push it towards like he's in another room, the door is open, and you're home downstairs or something watching TV, you got that camera on so you can see. That's true mental game. So that when you go to being gone, ideally, he's like, well, it doesn't matter. Because I know if that door will open or close or open or whatever doesn't mean anything to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Question on any of that?
No, I don't think so.
So here, what we worked on was setting a boundary, a mental boundary, right? And the reason why I had you grab the leash on his opposite side is because I knew it was going to feed underneath his butt, right? Which created what?
Motion, and it created.
Exactly, right? He got up and I said, so I intentionally will do things to provoke the behavior so I can put pressure on it and go, nope, you don't want to do that. So like when we teach our dogs to sit, right? Typically, if you tell a dog to sit, let's say Cookie Monster came by and then Mango went over to sniff Cookie, like you probably wouldn't do anything about it. It's like, oh, whatever, who cares, right? But I go, no, I'm going to correct that because I said sit. And unless I say break, he's supposed to hold. I don't care if it's Cookie or if it's Melissa or his favorite person in the world. You're supposed to hold, right? Humans give the gray area and they'll excuse things, which I understand as a human, but I go, the dog doesn't interpret it that way. He goes, oh, I decided to get up because I saw mom, right? But I'm like, but you were in a sit. So he goes, so then the dog doesn't understand that it's an exception because it's mom. Mm-hmm. He just thinks, I chose to do something outside of what you said, and it went without correction.
He doesn't think there's exceptions. He just thinks this is okay.
Yes, that he can do it. So if he can do the little things, he can do the bigger things. It all adds up, right? So that's why I said, I know we have the problem of separation anxiety, but there's all these other little things that we can also address that would ideally start to indirectly address the bigger things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So this one, when you go to get him out, if he doesn't have the leash on, you can use the door to help keep him in. But I don't. I always want the dog through the pressure to decide to move back. So the one thing that e-collar can do that no other tool can do, in my opinion, is make a dog think they're making the decision because he doesn't know where it's coming from. He just thinks, I decided to do this. This turned on. I don't know who's controlling it, but when I decided to do this, it turned off, right? Mm-hmm. If I take a dog and I pull up on a leash and push down on the butt, right, and they sit.
They know what's happening.
Exactly. They know that I made that happen, right? When you pull him into the kennel with the leash, even if he's resisting, and he physically hops in without being carried, you still did it for him, right? The brain still doesn't want to be in there. We need the brain to make the decision to want to stay in, but then also to want to go in through pressure. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Question on any of that? So I'm going to have you go and cue the word break.
All right, Mango, break.
And you're going to take a step back. Excellent. And we're going to approach the kennel. And what might happen is he's going to resist again. Is you're probably going to have to choke up close to the top of his collar. You're going to pull towards and in. And then slowly tap as I say tap until he goes into the space. Okay? Don't be surprised if he starts to wiggle and or panic a bit. That's just the brain freaking out. Okay? We'll work him through it. Go ahead and bring him over. Oh, tap. Tap, yep, a little bit of leash pressure. Good, hold right there, relax. Tap, 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 a little bit of leash pressure. Tap, good. Go ahead and shorten your leash just a wee bit. Good, excellent. Now here, you see how he took, I'm gonna have you take one step to the left. Good, tap, tap. Good. Now you're gonna release a little bit of slack, take one little step back. Hold right there. Excellent. So what did you see on that, before I had you step to the left, what did you see him do? I'm sorry? Exactly, he was gearing up to move, right? So when you stepped to the left, what do you think you did in response? Correct, you put what we call pressure, physical pressure, confrontational pressure, okay? So you said, nope, that's not gonna happen. And when you tap him, again, you're like another dog going, I need you to back up. So when you gave that second tap, what did he do in response?
Step back.
Yeah, he just a tiny bit, right? But that's the brain going into, okay, I can give up on trying to go out. So you let him in. He actually went in more willingly this time. But then immediately you turned to come out. You turned on the pressure. He went back in again, a little bit of guidance. Came in, again, turn on out. You started tapping, and that time without guidance, he went in, right? And that's when you had to block him because he just had that little bit of residual, I want to get out of here in his
That
brain,
also
right?
might have been because I was pretty close on the leash, and it tugged him a tiny bit.
Maybe, sure. So, and like, let's say it did tug him, right? I would understand if he got out, because I'm like, oh, that's partially me, right?
Yeah.
But because we're dealing with separation anxiety, I go, doesn't matter, I'm gonna correct that too. The only thing that matters to him is break. So I could literally teach him to where I'm pulling on the leash, and if I don't say break, he's just locked up. Exactly, like it can get that strict, right? So if this was any other dog, let's say we were just doing simple kennel training for the sake of kennel training, he did not have separation anxiety, I wouldn't be so strict on it. But when I have dogs with behavioral issues, the stricter you are, the better they do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So here, we played a little bit of the hot lava game, similar to place. He hopped out, pressure on. He went back in, right? And then came back out, pressure on, came back in. So this is a kind of reverse psychology type of thing, right? Where it's like, okay, you don't like this space. So we can create positivity through positive reinforcement, right? But sometimes that doesn't work. The dog goes, I don't, what's something that you really don't like?
Bugs.
Bugs? Tarantulas?
Any type of bug, honestly.
All right, let's use tarantulas, all right? I just used this, I think, with Brenda the other day. Tarantulas. Did I use that example with you? Yeah. So let's say you're in a room full of tarantulas, right? And someone would give you $1 million, okay? You might take that $1 million to go in that room with the tarantulas, but it's not gonna make you like the tarantulas.
Yeah.
You're still gonna not like them. Does that make sense? Same thing for your dog. We can do all the positive reinforcement in the world. I'm all for it, no problem, right? But it's not gonna make them like the space, okay? So this is where this kind of reverse psychology comes in, where he goes, I don't like that space, but if I feel pressure, if I go in the space, pressure will disappear. If I try to escape, pressure will turn on again, but the moment I go back, pressure again disappears, right? As we're teaching them, this is the safe space, because if you go out without permission, right, collar turns on, but the moment you go back in again, collar turns off. So this is something that people get confused about because they're like, well, won't the collar make the dog not like the kennel? I go, no, because the pressure turns off when the dog is in the kennel.
Gotcha.
If he's in the kennel, door closed, and he's freaking out, collar turns on. It's turning on because he wants to get out. The moment he lets that go, collar turns off. So then he goes, oh, if I actively get out the kennel, collar turns on. If I think about going out the kennel, collar turns on. But if I just accept that I'm in the kennel, ideally relax, nothing happens. You see that? If dad comes and opens the gate and I don't walk out the front of that threshold before hearing the word break, nothing happens. So then that's actually how we start to create the dog liking the space. Does that make sense? So it sounds bad because if you do this to a human, it wouldn't be good. Yeah, but we're dealing, of course, with an animal here, okay? So it's a very simple exercise that you can also do. So we have separate things that we're doing here. What we're doing with this exercise is conditioning. We're teaching Mango, one, you have to go in there, otherwise pressure will turn on. You have to stay in there, otherwise pressure will turn on. you're being more proactive about settling him, right? So like if he's standing up and like awkwardly not relaxing, give a little tap to at least just create this. And then we have, okay, bud, you go in the kennel. We're going to be downstairs. We're going to watch TV, but you have to be up there or we're going to go for dinner. That's a separate thing, okay? So this exercise here, similar to like the place break that we did with the dog bed, same thing, you know, I would say 5 minutes, maybe 8 minutes, varying the length of time, like a little bit of stuff like this, where he's just hanging in there for a few seconds, break. Making sure to add in the tapping too. We'll do another rep to get him to go in. This is the training component of it, okay? But then you're also gonna have, okay, you're gonna be in there for a period of time, and if you start to act out, we're gonna correct it, okay?
Okay.
Questions?
So should I, before we put him in here and like leave the room, should I get like a camera or something just to?
A camera?
Yeah.
Yeah. The camera I suggest just because it'll allow you to be
Proactive.
more proactive, precise, because you can actually see if he's relaxed or not, right? It's like, let's say you put the camera set up, you're downstairs, and then you notice him standing up again. Instead of waiting for that stand up to become the whine or the bark, you're proactive. So dogs aren't good at self-regulating like a human could be, right? So like, for example, I quit drinking a year and a half ago, okay? And in the beginning, I had a few slip-ups. But then eventually I was more proactive about just regulating myself. Like, nope, not going to drink. Even my friends say, have a drink, right? Now, I haven't touched it in a year and a half, right? People are going to stop smoking, right? If you've been smoking for 10 years, and then one day you decide, I'm going to stop, it's not going to just happen, right? You either need the nicotine patch. There used to be the rubber band thing, right? You're going to get those cravings because you're conditioned. Same thing for the dog, okay? So he's not going to proactively go, oh, I'm getting anxious. Let me relax now. What happens is the brain starts to go, you disrupt it, right? And he goes, oh, when I thought about being anxious, the collar happened. And then he goes to a more relaxed state, right? Eventually, we create a new pattern. Old pattern is I go in the kennel, I stand awkwardly, I start to paw, I start to bark. Now you have, I stand awkwardly, tap, and it disrupts. So now he goes, okay, now he's anticipating the tap. And eventually, if you're consistent enough with it and it's at the correct level, you'll literally see where he'll think about it and then naturally just make a different, exactly. That's when we start to see self-regulation, okay? But in the beginning, it's you doing a lot of the proactive. Dogs are reactive, they're not proactive. Humans are both reactive and proactive, right? Like someone could say something to you and it'll piss you off. That's reactive. Or one day you can wake up and you're like, you know what? I'm gonna go and learn how to play guitar and like find someone. That's proactive, right? Dogs are only reactive. He never wakes up one day and he's like, I'm gonna learn how to play fetch, you know, watch YouTube videos. Like dogs don't do that, okay? So he will give you what you give him. Now that you're giving discipline, guidance, structure, rules, you have to go in there, right? He's gonna start to give you something different back, okay? Questions on any of that? Pretty simple, huh? So I'm going to have you go ahead and cue break here. Going to release and move back.
Okay, break.
Okay, going to bring him forward. And as you're leading him in here, I'm going to have you, you're going to stop at about here. If he tries to go on his own, don't allow him. Once we have him settled, you're going to start to tap and then lightly pull because I want him to feel pressure turn off once he enters. Okay. Now, if he enters and it automatically relaxes, we don't need to do anything. If he doesn't fully react or relax, then we'll be, you know, the tap to proactively relax him.
Okay.
Okay. Going to bring him forward. Hold right there. Yep. Wait a sec. And tip. Tip. Right there. Tip. Tip. Right. A little bit of leash pressure. Tip. Good. Now here, you see how close he is to the threshold? So go ahead and do a little body block here. Tip. Tip. Right there. Now go ahead and step back. Relax your leash a little. Yep, perfect. Okay. Now, technically, because if you look at that nose to where the threshold is, right?
Still very close.
Yes. But now that you see how he's turned it away here, so that little communication from if this was the gate, this was his nose, and him just doing this actually means something. But little things like that are what tell me how the dog feels. When he's fully comprehending, you're going to see him go back here. Okay, and you can either do it through reps or you can do it through making it happen, right? So if I sit there and I keep tapping, eventually he might just move all the way back, but what you'd most likely see first is he's going to come forward.
Gotcha.
Right? Because he's going, no, I'm by the front because I want to get out of here. So it's going to force that to happen. I keep promoting. I probably have to bump it. Eventually goes, this is not working. He'll flush all the way back, and you'll literally see him
Against the wall.
exactly because he's like, okay, I need to give up this process, that process of like wanting to escape this. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no right or wrong here. I just let people choose how they want to approach it. Unless I don't see the dog making any kind of progress, then I go, you're going to just have to force it. Okay. But this is good. Make sense?
Yeah.
Question on any of that? So the homework for this week would be we can start working on this.
Okay.
So everything I mentioned earlier, kenneling him when you are home with the door closed, collar on, camera recommended. The roughlins are a little hard to see into with the greatest stuff, so do what you can. And then this exercise here would be also very beneficial that Melissa do it.
Okay.
Okay. And then same thing for her. So like one day if you're at work and she's home, I would have her do this. Because in my opinion, dogs are aware.
Yeah.
You're not there, it's just mom. So if she goes to put him away, it makes it that much more powerful, the exercise. Okay? Anything else?
Not that I can think of.
What we should start to see, hopefully, is this starts to go away.
Yeah.
Once you start to remove the possibility of escape or him being able to come out without permission, you're going to start to see him go in there and actually just relax.
Yeah.
Okay. But in the beginning, it might even look really bad where it's like, we had a dog, when we did place with him, he was a black Russian Terrier. It looks like a giant Schnauzer.
Oh, okay.
Okay. He was a year and a half old. He used to jump up and bark at the owner's face like this to demand things. He was a 150-pound dog, and she was like a 50-year-old woman. Like, she was like, it's very intimidating.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. So we did a boarding train with them, and I remember the first week we did place with him, he would drool, and we had to clean it up with the rag every.
Yeah. Whenever we come home, we have to like Swiffer it up, clean it up.
Yeah.
It's on the walls. It's on the bed.
Yep.
It's like 4 feet in front of him too from his barking.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
It's like a sea of drool. It's disgusting.
Yes. So ideally, all that stuff starts to go away. Okay. There are times where the drooling won't go away, but all the nonsense does. Ideally, we'd like him to learn to relax and just accept it. Sometimes the most we can push for is just the dog is still uncomfortable and they're still drooling. They're just not like frantic about it.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll see how he does. Anything else?
No.
All right. Good job. Break.
Break. What?
Let me get a post-it here so I can.